The first time Norah heard the voices echo through the mine, she thought they were a trick of the darkness. Maybe it was just the wind slipping through the rocks, or the creak of old timbers shifting under pressure. But then one of them spoke her name. That was the moment she realized she was no longer alone. For 2 days, 16-year-old Norah Bell had hidden in the shadows of the abandoned Rattlesnake Mine. She had survived on silence, fear, and rainwater that dripped from rusted pipes along the ceiling. She had believed the mine would protect her. She pressed her body against the cold stone wall. Her breath caught in her throat. The voices did not sound like rescue. They sounded like something else entirely. Something worse than what she had run from. 2 days earlier she had left everything behind. Her stepfather Ezra had come home drunk again, the way he always did when he lost too much in town. This time he had broken a plate over the sink, his eyes wild with rage. Norah had seen that look before. She knew it meant someone was going to bleed. She had waited until he passed out, his snores filling the house like thunder. Into the desert, without a bag, without water, without a single plan. Her feet knew the path even if her mind did not. They led her to the one place nobody would look, the mine, the cursed one, the one people whispered about and crossed themselves over. The entrance was narrow, half hidden behind a tumble of rocks and a bent metal gate. Inside, the air grew cold fast. The light vanished within feet. She had nothing but her hands, and the memory of the shaft, she moved deeper, where even her breath sounded loud. Abandoned tools littered the floor. Coated in dust, a broken lantern hung from a nail, still swaying slightly as if someone had just left. She remembered her mother's stories about men dying down here, collapses, starvation, maybe madness. But Norah had nowhere else to go. The desert could not protect her, and the mine, at least, would not ask questions. She found a small space behind a pile of rotted timber and curled up. Knees to her chest, she told herself it was only for the night. The first night was quiet, save for the whispers in her own head. Memories of slammed doors, screams, her mother's bruises, Ezra's threats, that heavy, hateful silence that settled over their home like a fog. In the mine, the silence was real, thick, living. The second night, the silence broke. Boots, slow, careful, measured. She froze, heart pounding in her ears. Someone was inside the mine. She heard them pause, then move again. Echoes bounced off the walls. One voice whispered, too close for comfort. She came through here. The first time Norah heard the voices echo through the mine, she thought they were a trick of the darkness. Maybe it was just the wind slipping through the rocks, or the creak of old timbers shifting under pressure. But then one of them spoke her name. But the footsteps coming closer told her she had been wrong. Then she ran. She had once visited as a child. The mine felt like a tomb. The town would not know multiple someones. Another answered, "Are you sure?" "Footprints," the first said. "Fresh?" Norah's stomach turned. They were tracking her. But how? She had covered her trail. Or so she thought. She had not lit a fire, had not cried out. Still, they had found her. She pressed tighter against the stone, her hands trembling. One of them stepped within feet of her hiding place. She could see his outline now, tall, rifle strapped to his back. Not a ranger, not a deputy, just a man dressed in desert gray, with boots that looked too clean for this kind of work. Then another voice spoke. "She has something," Ezra says. She took it. Her blood ran cold. She knew exactly what they meant, the locket. The one she had found in her mother's dresser weeks ago, tucked beneath old bills and letters. Inside it was a photograph. A man she did not recognize, but who looked like her. The back was engraved with a date and a name. Not Ezra's. She had not told anyone. Not even her mother. Ezra had seen her with it. She remembered now. The way he stared at her later that night, as if she had broken something sacred. She thought it was just his anger. But maybe it had been something more. Now these men were here, and they did not sound like they were going to ask politely. Norah crawled deeper into the shaft, careful not to knock loose any of the loose stones that lined the path. The mine twisted and narrowed the further it went, and she prayed the men would not be familiar with its layout. She had come here as a child once with her real father. It was a memory buried under years of silence. He had shown her where miners carved names into the walls, where the air turned colder, where the bats nested. She remembered thinking the mine felt like a secret world. Dangerous but alive, now it felt like a mouth waiting to close. The voices continued, closer now. He said she cannot leave. You understand that, right? One muttered, another chuckled. Low and humorless, we know what happens if she talks. Nora's heart stuttered. She was not just a runaway anymore, she was a witness. A threat. She reached the collapsed tunnel near the end of the shaft. Just beyond it was the air shaft, a vertical chute, barely wider than her shoulders. That led straight up to the surface. Her father had shown it to her once as a secret way out. She had never needed it until now. She dropped to her knees, brushing dust away from the edges. Behind her, the boots were moving faster. She could hear their breath now, could feel the urgency in their movements. They knew she was close. They were closing in. She pushed her body into the narrow shaft. Scraping her arms and shoulders, the rock tore at her skin. But she kept going, upward, toward the pale sliver of light. Toward the only chance she had left, then shouts behind her. They had found her trail. She pushed harder, ignoring the pain in her ribs. Her breath came in gasps, ... Fingers clawed at her boot. One of them had reached her. She kicked wildly, her heel connecting with something soft. A grunt of pain, the grip slipped. She climbed faster, muscles screaming. The shaft narrowed even more near the top. She twisted her body sideways to squeeze through, at the surface. A hand reached down from above, dirt-streaked, trembling, not one of the men. A boy's voice shouted, "Grab on! Come on now!" Without thinking, she took the hand he pulled, and she spilled out onto the ground, coughing, covered in dust. 3 teenagers stood around her, armed with sticks and makeshift tools. Their clothes were torn, their faces sunburnt. One of them knelt beside her. "You are Norah, right?" She nodded weakly. "We heard you on the scanner. Been listening for days. We know what they did to you." She blinked at them, dazed. "Who are you?" The oldest looked around nervously. "We live off-grid. Been hiding from people like them our whole lives? Ezra sent those men? But he is not the only one out here who buries things in the desert." Norah tried to sit up. Her body ached, her hands were bleeding. But she was alive, she was out. The boy offered her a bottle of water. "You are safe for now, but they will not stop. Not until you stop running or make them afraid to follow." Norah stared at the mine entrance, where darkness swallowed everything. She had been hiding for so long, but maybe this time she would stop being the one who ran. Norah looked down at the silver locket still clutched in her hand. It had survived the crawl through stone and dust. The photo inside was smudged, but still visible. The man's eyes stared back at her calm, knowing, almost protective. She had never known him, but something about him felt familiar. The boy beside her noticed. "Who is that?" he asked quietly. Norah shook her head. "I think it is my father." "Not Ezra, someone else, someone he hated." The others exchanged glances. One of the girls leaned closer. "You do not know what that locket means, do you?" Norah's voice cracked. "No, but Ezra does, and now—" "So do they." The girl pulled something from her pocket, an old newspaper clipping, folded and torn at the edges. She handed it to Norah. The headline read, "Local rancher dies in mysterious. Fire suspected foul play." Beneath it was a photo. The same man, the same locket. "He tried to expose something about Ezra," the girl said softly. "We found the article in an old church archive. No one believed it back then, but maybe now someone will." Norah stared at the paper, then at the desert stretching out before them. The mine behind her felt like it belonged to another life. A life spent hiding, a life lived in fear. One of the boys tapped the radio on his belt. "They are still searching the lower tunnels. We have maybe half an hour before they figure out you are gone." Norah nodded. She stood, her legs shaky but firm. "Then we need to leave." But not just to run, we need to find proof. Something they cannot bear. The group moved quickly, disappearing into a narrow ravine that cut behind the hill. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rocks. The mine grew smaller behind them, colder, silent once more. But Norah's silence had ended. For the first time, she felt something stronger than fear purpose. She could not change the past, but she could make sure no one else had to live under Ezra's shadow. She could make the truth louder than his threats. That night, as they made camp in a dry creek bed, the others shared their stories. Stories of parents who vanished. Friends who were threatened. All roads, somehow, seemed to lead back to the same men, the same violence, the same silence that had haunted Norah's home. She listened, locket pressed to her heart, and something inside her began to burn, not anger, not grief, but clarity. She had thought the desert was a place to disappear, but now she saw it for what it truly was, a place where truths waited to be uncovered. She would not run anymore. She would return, not to the ranch, but to the one person who might still believe her. Her mother. Norah knew it would be dangerous, that Ezra would be watching, that the men would be hunting, but she also knew she was not alone. Not anymore, and when morning came, she would walk back into that town with her head high and the truth clenched in her hand. Because sometimes survival is not enough. Sometimes you have to fight. Sometimes you have to speak. And sometimes the ones who chase you into the dark are the ones who should have been running all along. If you were Norah hiding in a mine while strangers hunted, you for a secret you did not understand, what would you have done? Stayed silent and hidden, or risked everything for the truth? Let me know in the comments. I need to know which choice you would make. And if this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something do, not forget to subscribe, because out here, in the wild places no one talks about, stories like these are all that is left behind.